Hi, my name is Gary O'Dew, and I would like to talk to you about how I present a description of a culture so that while at the same time we talk efficiently in the classroom, for example, about a culture when we generalize and say Americans are superficial or in their relationships, or the Japanese are very, much more in depth with their relationships, or the French tend to be more on the elitist side, and Americans more egalitarian. That when we're making those kind of statements, we all understand really what we're saying. That we're really talking about the behavior and thought pattern of a lot of the people in that culture, and that they think that way most of the time, perhaps, but that not everyone thinks that way, and certainly probably no one thinks that way all the time. And how I do that is I compare cultures to the bell curve. So I draw a curve on the board, and then I explain to them that when we stereotype in the ways that I was just talking about, that we're really talking about one standard deviation above the mean and one standard deviation below the mean, or something there about. And that still leaves a good third of the population that do not behave that way, do not think that way, do not value those values as much, or believe those things as much as the people that are more in the center of the curve. That there are people who are very extreme on one side, so we'll say extreme positive and extreme negative with regard to whatever the dimension we're looking at might be. We'll say that it's elitist. So over here we have people that are extremely elitist, and over here we have people that are not elitist at all, are very egalitarian, and don't value elitism or think that that's appropriate, but are much more equal opportunity oriented. So on that spectrum, I also, and plus I tell the students that, remind the students that this individual here is certainly not the same as this individual here, even though they may be in the center portion of the curve, even though they may tend to ascribe to elitism. Still, the strength of their belief in elitism is different. And then we have the others that are on the greater extreme. I also then explain that, in fact, two cultures where the center points are very different can have overlapping parts of the curve, which essentially means people in those two cultures who believe and act very similarly. So, for example, if this is our elitist continuum, where this culture is clearly on the elitist side, and over here we have equal opportunity, and we have a culture that I should put it down here, is much more on the equal opportunity side. And in fact, we can have a percentage of the population that cuts across both cultures that believe and think similarly, that are very different from their countrymen in other areas, but in those two cultures actually overlap a great deal. So this is my way of trying to communicate to my students that although in class for time's sake and efficiency's sake we will talk about cultures in this area and that area, that in fact we recognize there's a great deal of diversity around the central tendency of those cultures, and that and thereafter when I refer to a culture, I'll mention that now we're talking about the center portion of the curve. They refer themselves back to this then, in which case they remember that, yeah, there's a lot of diversity outside of that center portion. So hopefully that'll help you.